Imagine a single place holding all the knowledge of the ancient world, a library so vast it contained the secrets of the stars, cures for diseases we still struggle with today, and engineering marvels that would baffle modern scientists. This wasn't a fantasy. This was the Great Library of Alexandria, and its destruction wasn't a single fiery event like you see in the movies. It was a slow, agonizing death, a centuries-long bleed of human genius. What did we lose? We lost technologies. We are only just rediscovering astronomical charts of breathtaking accuracy and medical texts that could have saved millions of lives throughout history. We lost entire branches of science, entire ways of seeing the world, and the most chilling part, we will never truly know the full extent of what was lost. Today, we're going on an archaeological dig into the mind, sifting through the ashes of history to uncover the ghost of the Great Library and the ancient unsolved mysteries buried with it. Before we dive into the lost scrolls, let's set the scene. Imagine Alexandria in the 3rd century BCE. It wasn't just a city, it was the intellectual capital of the world. Founded by Alexander the Great's successor Ptolemy I, the city was a vibrant melting pot of Greek, Egyptian, and other cultures. At its heart was the Museum, a research institution that was home to the Great Library. This wasn't just a place to store books. It was a university, a think tank, and a laboratory all in one. Scholars from across the known world were invited to live and work there, all expenses paid. Their only job, to think, to debate, to experiment, and to write. Their ambition was breathtakingly simple and impossibly grand, to collect all the knowledge of humanity under one roof. Every ship that docked in Alexandria's harbor was searched. Any books found were seized, copied by professional scribes, and the originals were added to the library's collection. The copies were then given back to the owners. They wanted everything: poetry, history, mathematics, philosophy, law, biology, and more. At its peak, it's estimated the library held up to 500,000 scrolls. This was humanity's shared brain, a sprawling archive of our collective achievements and dreams. So, what happened? The popular image is of Julius Caesar accidentally burning it to the ground in 48 BCE, while his actions in the Alexandrian War did cause a fire that destroyed a warehouse containing some scrolls. This wasn't the end. The story of the library's demise is far more tragic because it wasn't a single moment. It was a slow, painful decay over centuries. Political instability, budget cuts from rulers who no longer valued knowledge, religious purges, and civil unrest all chipped away at the great institution. Scholars were expelled. Funding was redirected. Scrolls were neglected, damaged by moisture, or simply lost. One of the most significant blows came in the 4th century CE when a decree was issued to destroy pagan temples. The Serapeum, a daughter library that housed a significant portion of the collection, was ransacked and destroyed by a mob. Piece by piece, the world's greatest repository of knowledge was scattered to the winds. its contents disappearing like whispers in a storm. It wasn't a single fire that destroyed the library. It was the slow extinguishing of the human desire to preserve and share knowledge. Let's talk about what was actually on those scrolls, because that's where the true loss lies. We're talking about lost sciences and forgotten technology. Take Hero of Alexandria, a brilliant engineer and mathematician who worked there. His writings describe steam-powered engines, vending machines, automatic doors, and even programmable robots in the 1st century CE. Imagine where our industrial revolution could have started if his work hadn't been lost and dismissed as mere novelties. He essentially built a primitive steam engine, the Aurolopile, nearly 2,000 years before James Watt. Think about that. We could have had steam power in the Roman Empire. Another figure was Eratosthenes. He didn't just know the earth was round. He calculated its circumference with astonishing accuracy using nothing more than sticks, shadows, and his brain. His method was so elegant and simple, yet his detailed works and maps of the world are mostly lost. We only know about them from fragmented references in other surviving texts. We had ancient astronomers who proposed a heliocentric model of the solar system, with the Earth revolving around the Sun, a full 1,800 years before Copernicus. Aristarchus of Samos was his name, but his ideas were buried, dismissed, and we had to wait nearly 2 millennia for humanity to catch up to a truth that was once held in the Library of Alexandria. The loss in medicine is perhaps the most heartbreaking. Eratosthenes, often called the father of anatomy, practiced human dissection in Alexandria. This was revolutionary and, for a long time, taboo. He was the first to distinguish between motor and sensory nerves, to understand that the brain, not the heart, was the seat of intelligence. He described the circulatory system, the nervous system, and so much more. His detailed anatomical studies filled volumes of scrolls. Imagine the leaps in medical science we could have made. How many centuries of trial and error medicine, of bloodletting and ineffective treatments could have been avoided? We could have understood disease, anatomy, and surgery on a level that wasn't reached again until the Renaissance. The cures for ancient plagues, sophisticated surgical techniques, detailed knowledge of pharmacology or potentially documented, all lost. We are constantly finding hints in surviving texts that refer to these greater, more complete works. It's like finding a single page from an encyclopedia and knowing the entire volume is gone forever. These weren't just books. They were blueprints for a healthier, more advanced future that never came to be. This brings us to the mysteries we may never solve. The library's collection wasn't just science and tech, it was history. We know of a priest named Manetho who wrote a complete history of Egypt, chronicling all its dynasties. Only fragments of his work survive, quoted by other authors. But the complete, detailed history of the pharaohs, their lives, their politics, their beliefs, from their own perspective gone. What about other civilizations? The library held countless texts from cultures whose memory has been all but erased. We might have had the complete historical records of the Minoans, the Etruscans, or even civilizations we don't even know existed. We lost their stories, their languages, their perspectives on the world. Imagine reading the lost plays of Sophocles or Euripides. We know they wrote hundreds of plays, but we only have a handful. The rest likely turned to dust in the ruins of Alexandria. We lost art, literature, and philosophy that could have completely reshaped our understanding of the human experience. These aren't just academic losses, they are gaps in the story of us. They are questions about our own past that we can now never answer with certainty, all because the hard drive of the ancient world was wiped. So how did we get back on track? It was a long, slow process. After the final twilight of the library and the subsequent European Dark Ages, knowledge had to be painstakingly rebuilt. Much of what we did save came not from the West, but from the Islamic Golden Age. Arab scholars in cities like Baghdad and Damascus had a profound respect for ancient Greek knowledge. They actively sought out, translated, and preserved many of the texts that had been lost or forgotten in Europe. They didn't just copy them, they built upon them, making their own incredible advances in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and chemistry. It was through their translations, brought back to Europe during the late Middle Ages and the Renaissance, that the West reconnected with its own intellectual heritage. It was like finding scattered backups from the crashed hard drive. Scientists like Copernicus and Galileo weren't inventing things in a vacuum. They were standing on the shoulders of giants, rediscovering ideas that had been debated in Alexandria 2,000 years earlier. Modern science is, in many ways, a reconstruction project. But we've spent the last 500 years piecing back together the knowledge that was once housed under a single roof, rebuilding from fragments and rediscovering truths that were once common knowledge to the scholars of the Great Library. The story of the Great Library of Alexandria is a powerful, cautionary tale. It's a reminder that knowledge is fragile and that progress is not inevitable. It shows us how easily civilization can backslide when we stop valuing curiosity, critical thinking, and the preservation of our collective memory. The destruction of the library wasn't just about losing old books, it was about losing potential futures. The world we live in today was profoundly shaped by that loss. It forces us to ask, what would our world look like if the library had survived? Would we be colonizing the stars? Would we have cured cancer centuries ago? We can only speculate. But what we can do is learn its lesson. In our modern digital age, we face a similar challenge. Information is more abundant than ever, but it's also more ephemeral. Servers can crash, platforms can disappear, and misinformation can drown out truth. The preservation of knowledge is an active, ongoing task. It requires effort, investment, and a cultural commitment to valuing truth over dogma. The ghost of the Great Library doesn't just haunt the past, it warns our future. Let's make sure we're listening. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through history. If you found this as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of our past. And let me know in the comments, what lost piece of knowledge from the Great Library would you most want to recover? I can't wait to read your thoughts. See you in the next video.